Hey, Sal.
Hank, what's going on? We haven't worked a case in years.
I just bought my car at Carvana, and it was so easy. Too easy.
Think something's up?
You tell me. They got thousands of options. Found a great car at a great price. And it got delivered the next day.
It sounds like Carvana just makes it easy to buy your car, Hank.
Yeah, you're right. Case closed.
Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
And away we go, episode 1289 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, March 26th, 2026. 4 weeks from today is the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft, which will take place in Pittsburgh. And we on Wednesday had a most important day in the pre-draft process, Ohio State's Pro Day, at which a number of members of Washington Commanders football operations were in attendance. General Manager Adam Peters, Assistant General Manager Lance Newmark, head coach Dan Quinn, offensive coordinator David Blau, and defensive coordinator Durante Jones. All of them were at Ohio State's Pro Day on Wednesday. ESPN NFL Draft analyst Mel Kiper Jr., his big board for the 2026 NFL Draft has Ohio State players constituting 4 of the top 7 and 5 of the top 21 players in the draft. Number 3, linebacker Arvell Reese. Number 4, linebacker Sonny Styles. Number 6, safety Caleb Downs. Number 7, receiver Cornell Tate. And number 21, interior defensive lineman Caden McDonald. How about those Buckeyes in this upcoming NFL draft? Look, I would be pumped about the Commanders with their number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft, getting Reese, Styles, Downs, or Tate. All 4 are so well regarded, but is Arvell Reese the best of the bunch? This was ESPN NFL analyst and former Redskins executive Louis Riddick on ESPN's NFL Draft Daily on Wednesday afternoon.
That combination that you see with great athletes all the time of fluidity and flexibility, but suddenness. This guy can play, crouch down about as high as a coffee table and move just as fluid as water. And when he changes direction, you just see the explosiveness in terms of his body movement and his movement style. And it was just so evident. I mean, he is put together now. He is tapered at the waist. He has got big, broad shoulders, real defined legs, and he just moves effortlessly. And when he did simulate pass rushing get off and then ability to use his hands in concert with getting good bend and lean and turning a corner, you can see why all the teams are sitting there just absolutely licking their chops going, what ultimately could this young man's upside be as a third down DPR, as a designated pass rusher? Because I believe it's unlimited. And when you combine that with the fact that as a 3-down player, you can play him just about anywhere on the first 2 levels, that's why a guy like this goes within the top 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah, Arvell Reese, a guy who can be used as a linebacker and edge defender, a guy who is multiple, a favorite word of Durante Jones. Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, on which we talk Commanders on every episode, no matter the time of year. Well, what the Commanders do with their number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft may well be impacted by what the Tennessee Titans do with their number 4 overall pick in the draft. Next segment, a conversation with Tennessee Titans insider Terry McCormick of TitanInsider.com. He has covered the Titans since 1997. He's going to go in-depth on 2 Commanders unrestricted free agent acquisitions from the Titans this offseason in tight end Chig Okonkwo and receiver Van Jefferson. And Terry is going to tell us what he's thinking the Titans will do it for, as what they do it for could dictate what the Commanders do at 7. Also on the show, discussion of our Washington Wizards.
Hey, this was fun tonight. 133-110. The Wizards win over the Utah Jazz.
Dave Johnson on the Washington Wizards radio network. Our rebuilding and tanking Wizards, they snapped a 16-game losing streak, which was tied for the longest losing streak in a regular season in Bullets/Wizards history. A 133-110 win at the Utah Jazz on Wednesday night. And on the show, we'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles as we have arrived at opening day for MLB's 2026 regular season. I'll give you a breakdown of each team's initial 26-man roster for the 2026 regular season and discuss the outlook for each team going into this regular season. You could hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Kevin on how the Commanders should approach the NFL draft. Writes Kevin, "Hi Al. I was born near Vancouver, Canada, but I've lived in numerous countries across the world. I've been a Washington fan since 1983. My brother came home from that Super Bowl full of enthusiasm about a team he had watched in the first ever football game he had seen. He watched that football game at the American Embassy in Zaire, Africa, now the Democratic Republic of Congo. We were just dirt poor missionary kids, so his invitation to watch the game was remarkable in itself and formative for our fandom. Since that date, the two of us have always been Washington fans. The 19th century was pretty good to us, but since then, this has been a journey of loyalty, abstinence, and hope. I'm writing you because I want to share my theory about how to draft. This theory has nothing to do with Washington. This theory instead is a set of principles that I've held for a long time. The theory goes like this. Number one, draft for the first contract. Why? Because teams are equal after free agency. Qualifier players like to stay put, so the drafting team has the upper hand. Number two, draft players at positions who excel within that first contract window. The best metric of that is a first or second team All-Pro selection. Number three, heavily weight your pick based on the percentage of snaps for the player during that first contract. Why? Because the player can only impact the game when he's playing. If you put these theoretical principles into GPT, if it's accurate, which it often isn't, smiley face emoji, you get the following outputs in order. Cornerback, edge rusher, wide receiver, offensive tackle, quarterback. I've come to these theories based on three central areas of expertise. One, I've played football for all my life. I was never good, but I know what I'm talking about. Two, I've been a Washington fan my entire life, so I wanted to share. Three, I'm into my fourth decade working as a professional negotiator, so I think strategy is something I'm decently good at. Hope this email finds you well. I love your show and listen to it regularly while I'm out running before I go to work. Keep up the good work, Al. Well, thank you very much for that email, Kevin. That was quite the email, including his backstory as a Washington fan. What a backstory. The NFL draft principles that Kevin put forth all make sense. They're predicated on the rookie contract, and that makes sense in large part because the rookie contract is a definite, right? A known entity. You know the exact cost, and you know you're guaranteed to have the contract. And this is part of the argument against the Commanders with their number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, taking Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. When we talk about premium positions in the NFL, quarterback, receiver, offensive tackle, edge defender, and cornerback, the best players at those positions all make a lot more money than the best running backs make. And so the surplus value for, say, a great receiver on a rookie contract is a lot more than the surplus value for a great running back on a rookie contract. But where this becomes tricky is, okay, well, what if the Commanders feel more certain that Jeremiah Love is a great running back than they feel that any of the other players available at 7 are great players at their positions? Then do you take Love? Because you could also spin the rookie contract reality this way. The NFL moves quickly, and so worrying about things beyond the rookie contract can be pointless. Yes, running backs age poorly, but even if Love does age poorly, so what if he's great for 5 years, i.e. the life of the rookie contract, including the 5th-year option? Ideally, yes, a player taken with a top 10 pick in an NFL draft is good for beyond 5 seasons. But if you think that Love is that special and you get 5 special seasons out of him and then let him leave as an unrestricted free agent or even franchise tag him for a 6th season, well, is that so bad? It isn't. I think that most of us would sign up for that. But there are counters to that. One, how certain are you that he'll be special for all 5 seasons? And if we start talking about him only being special in, say, 3 of the 5 seasons or 2 of the 5 seasons, well, is he still worth that top 10 pick? 2, how certain are you that his production can't be replicated by another less costly back, given that so much of running back success in the NFL is based on offensive scheme and offensive line and not the back himself? I got to tell you, I find the Jeremiah Love debate to be so interesting because there are merits on both sides, but specific to Kevin's email, viewing NFL draft strategy through the prism of the rookie contract is smart. You know, the single biggest change in the NFL over the last 20 years may well be the installation of the rookie wage scale beginning with the 2011 NFL draft. We went from first-round picks in NFL drafts getting exorbitant contracts, often via holding out, to first-round picks in NFL drafts getting team-friendly, cookie-cutter contracts. The rookie wage scale has changed so many things. I feel like not enough attention has ever been given to that. Hey, please consider subscribing to this podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you.
Today's show is sponsored by Strawberry.me. Let me ask you something. Do you think championship athletes got to the top by guessing? No, they had coaching. Every elite athlete has a coach watching their form, calling the plays, and spotting the blind spots they can't see themselves. That's how championships are won. So why are you trying to win in your career without a coach? You're grinding, hoping for the promotion, trying to read the politics, guessing your next move. That's amateur hour. If you want to perform like a pro, you need coaching. Strawberry.me matches you with a professional career coach who breaks down your game film. They help you negotiate the raise, navigate workplace politics, and execute a strategy that actually works. Stop riding the bench in your own life. Go to strawberry.me/podcast50 to get 50% off your first coaching session. Strawberry.me, because pros don't guess, they get coached to win.
Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
The Washington Commanders this offseason still need to do more in terms of adding playmakers for quarterback Jaden Daniels on offense, but the team in free agency added a significant playmaker in tight end Chig Okonkwo. The Commanders on March 12th, what was day 2 of the NFL's 2026-2027 league year, announced having signed Tennessee Titans unrestricted free agent tight end Chig Okonkwo. The contract per overthecap.com and spottrack.com is the 3-year, $27 million deal with $16.7 million fully guaranteed at signing. The 2026 season will be his age 27 season. Chig Okonkwo, he went to the University of Maryland, was with Maryland for 4 seasons, 2018 through 2021, sat out the 2020 season, but played in the 2018, 2019, and 2021 seasons. So the Titans took him in the 4th round of the 2022 NFL draft. Okonkwo, over 4 seasons with the Titans, put up solid numbers despite playing on Titans teams with bad quarterback play, excelled in yards after catch, and was durable. He, over his 4 NFL seasons, has played in 68 of a possible 68 regular season games. For more on Chig Okonkwo, it is a pleasure to welcome to the Al Galdi podcast Tennessee Titans insider Terry McCormick of TitanInsider.com. Terry has covered the Titans since 1997. You could follow him on X at TerryMC13. Hey, Terry, how are you?
Good. How are you, Al?
Doing well. Nice to talk to you. What are the Commanders getting in Chig Okonkwo?
I think they're getting a guy who can be productive and maybe wasn't quite used enough in Tennessee to fully tap into his potential. I think If you look at the numbers, they're pretty consistent across the board, mid-50s in catches most years, somewhere in the 600-yard range, that sort of thing for Chig Okonkwo. But it always felt like that there would be big games from Chig, where he'd have 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. And then there'd be the next week, it's like, 2 catches for 12 yards. And, it's like, what's going on here? And I think some of that was just because he was on a bad Titans team that just couldn't seem to get out of its own way at times over the last 2 years. And I think some of it is the fact that, I think he has a chance to be sort of like Jonnu Smith and Jared Cook before him, who went on to better things once they left Tennessee and found roles at other places.
So here were the rankings for Titans quarterbacks in ESPN's total QBR for Chig Okonkwo's 4 regular seasons with the team. 2022, Ryan Tannehill, number 24 out of 31 qualified NFL quarterbacks. 2023, no Titans quarterback qualified as a qualified NFL quarterback. 2024, Will Levis, number 32 out of 32 qualified NFL quarterbacks. 2025, Cam Ward, number 28 out of 28 qualified NFL quarterbacks. That is rough. What was the bigger issue for Okonkwo over his time with the Titans? Bad quarterback play or him not being used in the best way?
Yeah, there's been some rough quarterback play over the last 2 or 3 years. You had Will Levis with his ups and downs. You had Cam Ward with his ups and downs. And it's been a situation here where the quarterback position, they've been trying to grow their own, so to speak. And thus far, the results have been kind of mediocre. And I think that, Chig Okonkwo was actually one of the more reliable weapons that the Titans had last year, because you remember they had, Calvin Ridley went out early with an injury, missed more than half the season. They had 2 rookies in Chim Dike and Alec Eilmanner that wound up playing a lot on the outside. Then, of course, they had Van Jefferson, who also signed there in Washington, as well as Chig Okonkwo. So Chig was actually one of their more explosive playmakers over the last couple of years. And I think if you go back and you look in 2024, he had a 70-yard catch and run at Houston on a pass from Will Levis. It was about a 15, 20-yard pass, and he took it the rest of the way to the house. And that showed you the potential that Chig Okonkwo has. It's just a matter of, did they use him right, and can you get more of that type of production out of him?
What is Chig Okonkwo's biggest strength?
I think it's his ability to match up one-on-one against a linebacker and use his speed, or against the safety and use his length and size. So I think he's a good matchup against secondary coverage people like linebackers and slots and even nickel corners, who sometimes tend to be smaller guys. So I think that's probably the biggest strength that he has, is that he can be a weapon as a matchup in the pass game.
The Commander signed Chig Okonkwo to a contract that pretty clearly says that he's the team's number 1 tight end. Is he a true number 1 tight end?
We'll see. I mean, I think he's kind of a B+ tight end. Does that make sense? I mean, he's probably not on the level of George Kittle or Travis Kelce or somebody, in his prime, or somebody like that. But I think he can be more with a better team than what he's shown the last 3 or 4 years here with the Titans.
How is Chig Okonkwo as a blocker?
You might want to have another tight end handle a lot of that. Chig is willing as a blocker. He's not unwilling, but that's not his strong suit. You can tell by looking at him that he doesn't need to be an inline blocking tight end very often, unless you're in a 2 or 3 tight end set and he needs to be out there. But as a pass catcher, he could be really good. As a blocker, willing, but probably a little below average.
Willing, but not always able, right?
Yes, there you go.
You know, it's funny. The Titans have quite the history with tight ends out of Maryland. Maybe the greatest tight end in Titans franchise history is Frank Wycheck, who went to Maryland, and the Titans had Chig Okonkwo.
Yeah, absolutely. Wycheck is legendary here in Nashville, not only for his play, obviously the thrower of the Music City Miracle Pass and one of the great targets for Steve McNair during the team's glory years here. And then later on, he worked in morning radio for several years. So a lot of people got to know him that way, far beyond, what he did just on the football field.
Yeah, and Frank Wycheck was with the Redskins before he was with the Titans franchise. The Skins took Wycheck in the 6th round of the 1993 NFL Draft out of Maryland. He played for the Skins for the 1993 and 1994 seasons, then played for the Houston Oilers / Tennessee Titans for the 1995 through 2003 seasons. You mentioned Van Jefferson. The Commanders on March 17th announced the signing of Titans unrestricted free agent receiver Van Jefferson. The contract per overthecap.com and Spottrack.com is a 1-year, $1.4025 million deal with $527,500 fully guaranteed at signing. The 2026 season would be his age 30 season. He was taken by the Los Angeles Rams in the 2nd round of the 2020 NFL Draft out of the University of Florida. But he has played in NFL regular season games for 4 teams: the Los Angeles Rams, Atlanta Falcons, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Tennessee Titans. So only spent 1 season with the Titans this past season. He in the 2025 regular season played in 16 of the Titans' 17 games, had 29 receptions for 350 yards and a touchdown on 52 targets. What can you tell us about Van Jefferson?
I think you got a solid veteran who's mostly dependable. I don't think he's going to go out and light the world on fire and, all of a sudden turn into an 80-catch guy at this point in his career. But he's a solid number 4 type receiver who occasionally, if called upon, can contribute more than that. I think he had at least one 100-yard passing reception game for the Titans this past year. So the capability is there, probably not going to happen consistently, but, if somebody else is dinged up and he needs more snaps than the usual 15 to 20 that he might get as a number 4 receiver, he can step into that role and be just fine.
Much more with Terry McCormick in moments, but if you are a Washington Commanders fan, check out bgobsession.com, an outstanding site for Commanders discussion. Now is the perfect time to check out bgobsession.com with everything that the team has done in free agency and with the NFL draft coming up. The Sons of Washington forum on bgobsession.com is really good. A lot of smart and funny conversation. BG Obsession, or BGO, has been going strong since 2009. Great contests, game day chats, and camaraderie. No politics, just football. Both old school and new school fans are welcome. Visit and join BGO at bgobsession.com. bgobsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession. We're talking with Tennessee Titans insider Terry McCormick of TitanInsider.com. The Titans this past January 22nd announced the hiring of San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator and former New York Jets head coach Robert Saleh as head coach. The Titans have the number 4 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, in which the Commanders have the number 7 overall pick. What the Titans do with their pick is of major interest to our team. What do you think that the Titans will do with their pick?
I think they have to get an impact player of some kind. And Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded guy, so a lot of people think that if David Bailey or even Reuben Bain are there, that they might lean toward one of those, because they really do need help at the edge rusher position. They've not had a true dominant edge rusher probably since the days of Javon Curse and Kevin Carter, back, as I mentioned, in the aforementioned glory years. But they've had some good pass rushers. Kyle Vanden Bosch was excellent. More recently, Harold Landry had some good years. Derek Morgan, Brian Arakpo, whom you guys know very well, had a couple of good years here. But as far as a true dominant homegrown guy, it's been a while. I could see them going there. And then obviously the thought on a lot of people's minds is, what do you do with Jeremiah Love? Is he a dominant type player? Is he a guy who can be like Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, albeit in a different vein, different type of player? Can he change the offense fundamentally and make it more explosive out of the running back position, something that kind of, we saw a lot in the 70s, 80s, and 90s with the Walter Paytons and the Gary Sanders and the, Emmitt Smiths and people like that. Offenses used to be built around the running game and running backs. It's not done that way very much anymore. The Titans were actually kind of a dinosaur doing it with Derrick Henry over the last, 6, 7 years before he departed to the Ravens. And I think that, if you go back and you look at when this team has had success, they've run the ball very well. They've had a talent at running back, Eddie George, Chris Johnson, Derrick Henry, even Lindale White had a couple of good years. I think you have to consider Jeremiah Love as a possibility at number 4 if you think he is a transcendent player, even though running back careers generally only last, if you're lucky, 7 to 8 years, as opposed to where a dominant pass rusher could have 10 to 12 years in the league.
So, as you know, the Titans have come up a lot as possibly being the team that takes Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. The Titans' president of football operations is Chad Brinker. The Titans' general manager is Mike Borgonzi. You do not think that Titans football operations is philosophically opposed to taking a running back with a top 5 pick in an NFL draft?
I don't think you're fundamentally against it. I think that they would have to be convinced that Jeremiah Love is far and away the best player available in the draft. If he's number 1 on your board, then I think you have to look past position. I mean, because a couple of years ago, different general manager, different head coach at the time, they took J.C. Latham because they had a need at tackle. Everybody thought they were going to go for Joe Alt. Joe Alt went 2 picks ahead of them to the Chargers at number 5. They took J.C. Latham at number 7 because it was a need, and they were going to try him at left tackle, and it addressed premium position and a need at a premium position. In retrospect, they would have been better off taking the best player available, the best playmaker available in that draft, and that was Brock Bowers. So, it's something to consider. If it's a non-premium position, it had better be a Hall of Fame caliber player. But if it is, you better not pass him up.
The Titans in the 2025 NFL Draft had the number 1 overall pick, with which they took quarterback Cam Ward out of the University of Miami. He did not have a good rookie season, but that certainly was not all on him. Where are you on Cam Ward?
Well, to me, the jury's still out. I know a lot of people are high on him, but to me, the jury is still out, and I think you have to get him some more weapons. You have to. They brought in Wan'Dale Robinson, who had a pretty decent year with the Giants, but I hesitate to, bank on a 5'8" wide receiver who operates largely out of the slot as being a true difference maker when most of your true difference makers are at least 6'2" and they run a 4.3. So, to me, with Cam Ward, they need to get him some weapons. They need to shore up the offensive line. I think there's still some issues to be cleared up with him. His mechanics need improvement. He needs to work on his deep ball accuracy. His pocket presence got better over the course of the season. It was terrible through the first half of the year as he was, getting hit, fumbling the ball, losing it, sometimes even untouched. But over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 games of the year, you started to see growth from Cam Ward. Now you've got to see a big leap forward, because in 3 years from now, you want to see this guy on a track to be more like Joe Burrow as a number 1 pick and less like Kyler Murray as a number 1 pick.
All right, Tennessee Titans insider Terry McCormick of TitanInsider.com. Terry, thanks. All the best.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, whatever big event you're planning, a wedding, a party, whatever, consider using a great sponsor of this podcast, cateringbyuptown.com. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is outstanding. It is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Washington Commanders fans. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. And Catering by Uptown's specialty is weddings. Get excellent service at an affordable price. In fact, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can check out Catering by Uptown's premier wedding venues. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. There have been so many indignities for the Washington Wizards during their three-season tank, but not among the indignities is a new franchise record for longest losing streak in a regular season, a 133-110 win at the Utah Jazz on Wednesday night. The Wizards snapped a 16-game losing streak, which was tied for the longest losing streak in a regular season in Bullets/Wizards history. This marks the fifth time in franchise history that the team has had a 16-game losing streak in a regular season, including 4 times during this 3-season tank. The Wizards in March 2010 lost 16 consecutive games. The Wizards in February and March 2024 lost 16 consecutive games. The Wizards in November and December 2024 lost 16 consecutive games. The Wizards in January 2025 lost 16 consecutive games. And the Wizards in February and March 2026 lost 16 consecutive games. It is amazing how the Wizards now 4 times during the 3-season tank have walked right up to the line of breaking the franchise record for longest losing streak in a regular season, but have not crossed that line. The Wizards in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season now are 17-55. Third worst record in the NBA. The Jazz in this regular season now are 21-52, fifth worst record in the NBA. The Wizards, in order to guarantee keeping their reported top 8 protected first-round pick in the 2026 NBA draft, need to finish with one of the 4 worst records in the NBA. So this game against the Jazz was key. The Wizards need to go no better than 3-7 over their final 10 games of this regular season in order to guarantee finishing with a bottom 4 record. So the Wizards still are in good shape in terms of keeping the pick. The Wizards won at the Jazz on Wednesday night despite continuing to have a bunch of guys out. Tristan Vukcevic did not play due to lower back tightness. Alex Sarr did not play for a second consecutive game due to a left big toe injury. Trey Johnson did not play for a third consecutive game due to a right foot sprain. Trae Young did not play for a 5th consecutive game due to a re-injured right quadriceps and also lower back irritation. Keyshawn George did not play for a 12th consecutive game, this due to a partial tear of the UCL in his left elbow. Anthony Davis did not play for a 23rd time in 23 games since being acquired by the Wizards via trade on February 5th, what was 2026 NBA trade deadline day. He's not playing due to a finger sprain on his left hand. D'Angelo Russell did not play for a 23rd time in 23 games since being acquired by the Wizards via the Anthony Davis trade. Russell is being listed as not being with the Wizards. He is not expected to ever play for the Wizards, and Cam Whitmore is done for the season due to right shoulder deep vein thrombosis. 4 players, Julian Reese, Will Riley, Jaden Hardy, and Sharif Cooper, combined for 83 of the Wizards' 133 points. A monster game for Julian Reese.
Sharif Cooper at the Delta Center logo on the right side. Goes at Conchar, foul line, stop start, left the restrictor arc, chase the baseline. My Ace Bailey now goes back at Bailey, got inside him, goes reverse, misses Bailey the block, but Juju Reese bank and score. 24 for Juju Reese, 119-102.
Dave Johnson on the Washington Wizards radio network. Julian Reese, the man known as Juju, he in 30 minutes, 9 seconds as a starter, had 26 points, 17 rebounds, including 5 offensive boards and 2 blocks. He did have no assists versus 3 turnovers, but he went 12 for 16 from the field, all twos, and went 2 for 4 on free throws. So also, another good game for Will Riley.
29-17 free throw missed. Out front, Anthony Gill, top of the arc, left wing outside the arc, Riley.
These aren't household names.
No, Riley, foul line, driving the basket, goes reverse, bank and score. Started on the right, finished on the left, 31-17. Will Riley now 11 points for the Wizards.
Yeah, Glenn Consor in on that call. No, these were not household names, but Will Riley, he in 22-15 as a starter, had 19 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists versus 1 turnover. Did struggle shooting, went just 1 for 4 on threes, just 5 for 10 on twos, and just 6 for 8 on free throws. And Jaden Hardy, he was productive off the bench.
Hardy, hash mark right wing. Kennedy Chandler will try a 3. It's off the rim. Long rebound comes to Hardy. Center circle. Hardy racing up court to the slam. Spring loaded. Right hand. Jaden Hardy, 19 points, 106-75.
You know, he doesn't look like he has hops. Guess what? He's got them.
Jaden Hardy, 27-27 as a reserve, 21 points and 2 rebounds. He went 5 for 13 on threes and 3 for 5 on twos. It did have no assists versus 3 turnovers and did go 0 for 2 on free throws. There was something poetic about 2 tanking teams in the Wizards and Jazz playing each other on Wednesday night, as earlier on Wednesday, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver again spoke out against tanking. He did this on Wednesday afternoon during a press conference off the NBA Board of Governors on Wednesday, voting to authorize the league to formally explore potential team expansion to Las Vegas and Seattle. I don't blame our Wizards one bit for tanking. I, as a Wizards fan, wholeheartedly endorse our team for tanking, but there's no doubt that tanking isn't good for the NBA. Like, it isn't good for the NBA that so many teams are tanking. This was Silver during the press conference on Wednesday afternoon following the Board of Governors meeting in New York City.
Virtually everything we covered at the board meeting was very positive. One topic not so positive, and that's ongoing tanking issues in the league. We had a lengthy conversation about the issue. I will say, and again, as I've said this before, this is not a new issue in this league. You could go back to the 60s when coin tosses were used to determine who got the first pick, then into the 80s when a draft lottery was created. That lottery has been modified 4 times since then. Obviously, it does not seem to be operating optimally where we are now. This may be an unusual year because of a perception of such a deep draft. I'd say that's combined with the advent of advanced analytics in all the sports, that teams are now making sort of, calculations in terms of opportunities and risks and rewards. And I understand where that incentive takes our teams. This meeting was not about pointing fingers at any team in particular. Again, I understand where the incentives are. We understand why it results in certain behavior. And I will say seemed unanimous in the room that we needed to make a change, and we needed to make a change for next season. Exactly what that change is, we're continuing to work on. No votes were taken today. I think there's also unanimous agreement that we need to make this change in advance of the draft and free agency this year, so all the teams understand the rules of the road going into next year. That means we will most likely have a special board meeting in May, in which at that point we will vote on whatever modification we come up with. We've been hard at work on this issue for several months now. That's led by Byron Spruell and Evan Wash and James Jones in the league office. Of course, we have a competition committee. They've been working on that issue with us. We've been talking separately to our general managers. I do think ultimately this is a decision that needs to be made at the ownership level. It has business implications, has basketball implications, has integrity implications for the league. So it's one that we take very seriously. And we are going to fix it, full stop. And I want to say that directly to our fans. And I recognize, too, that it puts even fans in many cases in an odd position, because it's become lore that in many corners of the league that the worst place to be is a middle of the road team. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think even teams that are trying hard to compete with the rosters they have, in many cases are being told by their fans that they're better off being bad or somehow manipulating the system to be worse than maybe they really are. And that's puts enormous pressure on our teams. So as I said, incentives need to be fixed, and we will fix them, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the NBA from a league perspective has a problem with tanking. This keeps coming up. This keeps being talked about. This is getting a lot of attention. This is not good for business. More from Adam Silver during this press conference on Wednesday afternoon on tanking.
There is an aspect of team building that is called a genuine rebuild, rebuild with integrity. The problem we're having these days is it's become almost impossible to distinguish between a tank and a rebuild. And Dave Weiss, who's sitting here in front of me, who's sort of been overseeing this process, yes, we find 2 teams right before All-Star, and maybe, that behavior, I think, rose to a level, and I think the teams understood that required a response from the league office. But there's such a subtlety to this when incentives don't match, when we're now into it with coaches' decisions on lineups and when players come in and out of the game, injuries, doctors going back and forth with each other, pain levels of players, that my sense is when I say fix now, yes, we need to do something more extreme than we did with those incremental changes the last 4 times along. I should leave open the fact that, again, in a sophisticated way, talking to these incredible GMs who have such hard jobs, that a draft is one way to build a team. Of course, there's free agency, and then there's draft, and then there's trading, and there may be aspects of the CBA over time that we need to adjust as well. That's not something we can look at right now. The CBA has at least 4 more years to run, or maybe 3. Then it goes longer. There's an opt-out. I'm sure the Players Association has views too on things that they'd want to do differently next time we sit down. So it may be the case that we will do some things, and then depending what happens, in a new collective bargaining agreement, as we have years to think about some potential changes, that there are different ways to build through free agency than exists now, or trade rules change. I will say I really like where the league is right now, because I'm sorry to have to talk about tanking, because it takes away from the incredible competition we're seeing from roughly 20 teams in the league right now, going into a wide open playoffs. So many different teams, many media members in this room who cover the league, who are predicting outcomes. It's really exciting basketball. And what's so incredible about live sports at this level, and I think it's why not just the NBA, but we're seeing a rising tide among all premium sports, is that people have this hunger for this live unscripted drama. Of course, the opposite of that is when there's a sense that both teams aren't out there trying to kill themselves to win a game. And so, as I said, we have to fix that problem. I guess I should just, not overstate something that you're going to be asking me a question in 5 years and say, you said this was a forever fix. If I'm the one standing at the podium, I just want to make clear that I recognize things may change. Also, because there may be changes that we see through collective bargaining or other changes to the system that may impact on what we're doing now. But certainly, going into next season, the incentives will be completely different than they are now.
It's going to be very interesting to see what mechanisms the NBA puts in place to prevent tanking, or at least discourage tanking. But our Wizards may be part of the last group of hardcore tanking teams in the NBA. Next up for the Wizards, there are 2 games this weekend at the Golden State Warriors, Friday night at 10, and at the Portland Trail Blazers, Sunday evening at 6. Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern was the deadline by which MLB teams had to finalize their initial 26-man rosters for the 2026 regular season. What's especially notable about the Washington Nationals' initial 26-man roster for the 2026 regular season is that who isn't on the roster is more notable than who is on the roster. The Nats in recent days surprisingly optioned outfielders Dylan Cruz and Robert Hassel III and catcher Harry Ford to AAA Rochester, and surprisingly unconditionally released veteran reliever Drew Smith. But, you know, at this point with the Nats, nothing is that surprising given that they are restarting a rebuild. The Nats, since winning the 2019 World Series, have had 6 consecutive losing regular seasons, 2020 through 2025. The rebuild started with a massive fire sale in July 2021, and the rebuild essentially was declared a failure when Nats managing principal owner Mark Lerner this past July 6th announced having fired president of baseball operations and general manager Mike Rizzo and having fired manager Davey Martinez. I am a big fan of the Nats' new baseball operations regime led by president of baseball operations Paul Taboni, general manager Anirudh Kalambi, and manager Blake Butera. I am a big fan of the Nats now going in on analytics and sports science like never before. This was so needed. This is so long overdue, but there with Nats fans is rebuild fatigue, and I get it. Trust me, I do. If you're listening to this and you're a Nats fan and you're sick of this team rebuilding and you're sick of this team losing, I totally get where you're coming from. Your initial Nats 26-man roster for the 2026 regular season: the catchers, Keibert Ruiz and Drew Millis; the infielders, C.J. Abrams, Brady House, Luis Garcia Jr., Nasim Nunez, Andres Chaparro, Jose Tena, and Jorbit Bibas. The Nats this past Sunday afternoon announced having traded pitching prospect Sean Paul Lignan to the New York Yankees for Bibas. The outfielders, James Wood, Dalen Lyle, Jacob Young, and Joey Weimer. The starting pitching rotation: number 1, Cade Cavalli; number 2, Miles Michaelis; number 3, Jake Irvin; and then numbers 4 and 5 in some order are Zach Littell and Foster Griffin. And the relief pitchers: Brad Lord, Cole Henry, Clayton Beater, PJ Poulin, Andre Granillo, Cianel Perez, Gus Varland, and Ken Waldachuk. Not exactly a bunch of household names in that bullpen. The Nats are beginning their 2026 regular season with a rather difficult stretch that starts with a 6-game road trip. First up, a 3-game series at the Chicago Cubs. Game 1 Thursday afternoon at 2:20. Cade Cavalli versus Matthew Boyd is the pitching matchup. The Nats on Wednesday afternoon did announce the starting pitchers for games 2 and 3 of the series: Miles Michaelis in Game 2 and Jake Irvin in Game 3. The Nats in the 2026 regular season per Fangraphs are projected to go 69 and 93 and finish last in the 5-team National League East. This may well be the Nats regular season for which there are the lowest expectations since the franchise moved to D.C. in the 2004-2005 offseason. I actually think that the Nats could surprise some people over the first, say, 50 games. But yeah, the water eventually will find its level, and things could get especially bad if the Nats trade C.J. Abrams. I will take the Nats to go 70 and 92, but for me, the focus of this Nats season is on the development of key young players and the hopefully improved process of baseball operations fueled by analytics and sports science. I am not that invested in wins and losses for the Nats right now. I'm much more invested in the development of key young guys and signs that the Nats now do in fact have improved process. The process was broken. The process needed to be fixed. Hopefully the process has been fixed. If we exit the 2026 regular season feeling good about a nucleus of young Nats players and having affirmation that the Nats do now have improved process, then this season will be a successful season regardless of the record. I'm not here to tell you how to be a fan. I'm not here to tell anyone how to be a fan. But if you are invested in wins and losses for the Nats this regular season, well, you might be disappointed.
Today's show is sponsored by Strawberry.me. Let me ask you something. Do you think championship athletes got to the top by guessing? No, they had coaching. Every elite athlete has a coach watching their form, calling the plays, and spotting the blind spots they can't see themselves. That's how championships are won. So why are you trying to win in your career without a coach? You're grinding, hoping for the promotion, trying to read the politics, guessing your next move. That's amateur hour. If you want to perform like a pro, you need coaching. Strawberry.me matches you with a professional career coach who breaks down your game film. They help you negotiate the raise, navigate workplace politics, and execute a strategy that actually works. Stop riding the bench in your own life. Go to strawberry.me/podcast50 to get 50% off your first coaching session. Strawberry.me, because pros don't guess, they get coached to win.
Hi, I'm Alicia.
And I'm Stacy.
And we make Trashy Divorces, everybody's favorite good podcast about bad relationships.
Looking for something true crimey without the gore or the body count?
We've been churning out funny, feisty, feminist episodes since 2019. So if you're looking to put some scandalous stories told well into your ears this summer, check out Trashy Divorces, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Trust us, we've covered someone you love.
Or someone you love to hate.
The Baltimore Orioles, so the franchise started in the 1901 season, and as the Milwaukee Brewers, then was the St. Louis Browns for the 1902 through 1953 seasons, and has been the Baltimore Orioles since the 1954 season. This is a podcast that discusses Washington, D.C. area sports. Baltimore, Maryland is not Washington, D.C. Baltimore and D.C. are two different markets, but because D.C. had no MLB team for the 1972 through 2004 seasons, a lot of people in the D.C. area are Orioles fans, especially people between the ages of, say, 35 and 60. I grew up in the D.C. area in the 1980s and early 1990s. I grew up as an Orioles fan. I still am an Orioles fan, though I root for the Washington Nationals as well. And the Nats, of course, are the team of Washington, D.C. And so on this podcast, talk about both the Nats and O's. I don't pretend like there aren't still a lot of O's fans in the D.C. area. No other podcast or show in this area talks about the O's. This podcast does, though the Nats on this podcast almost always get top billing, as they should. We last segment examined the Nats as they begin their 2026 regular season. What about the O's? Well, they are in a much different place than the rebuilding Nats are in. The O's are in win-now mode. Now, they, like the Nats, had a very disappointing 2025 season. The O's in the 2025 regular season went an American League East worst 75-87 with a run differential of minus 111, which was the second worst run differential in the American League. The O's last regular season got hammered by injury for a second consecutive regular season, but like the Washington Commanders in their injury-ravaged 2025 regular season, not all of the struggles were about injuries. So the O's this past October 27th announced the hiring of Craig Albernaz as manager. The O's since the end of last season have spent a lot of money on players, as there was big-time pressure on President of Baseball Operations and General Manager Mike Elias to have a good offseason. What I am most excited about with the O's are two things: the offense and the starting pitching rotation. The offense, off a very disappointing 2025 regular season, should be back to being good again, especially with the team's prized offseason acquisition, first baseman Pete Alonso. The O's this past December 11th announced having agreed with Alonso as a free agent on a 5-year contract, reportedly worth $155 million, so works out to an average annual value, an AAV of $31 million, so which is the highest AAV for a first baseman in MLB history. And with the rotation, this on paper is the best rotation that the O's have had in years. So much so that the O's this past Saturday afternoon announced having optioned starting pitcher Dean Kramer to minor league camp. What is most worrisome about the O's is the bullpen. Now, most MLB teams have uncertainty with their relievers, but it's not a stretch to see this Orioles bullpen having problems. So also, the O's already are dealing with a number of injuries, as the bad injury luck may be extending into a third consecutive season. The O's on Wednesday afternoon announced their initial 26-man roster for the 2026 regular season. The catchers, Adley Rutschman and Samuel Basayo. The infielders, Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso, Ryan Mountcastle, Kobe Mayo, Blaze Alexander and Jeremiah Jackson. The outfielders, Colton Cowser, Dylan Beavers, Taylor Ward, Tyler O'Neill, and Leody Taveras. The starting pitching rotation, number 1, Trevor Rogers, number 2, Kyle Bradish, number 3, Shane Baz, number 4, Chris Bassett, and number 5, Zach Eflin. And the relief pitchers, Ryan Helsley, Tyler Wells, Yanier Cano, Dietrich Enns, Yaramil Geraldo, Rico Garcia, Grant Wolfram, and Anthony Nunez. But 7 Orioles players are on injured lists. Infielders Jordan Westberg and Jackson Holliday and outfielder Heston Kjerstad are on the 10-day injured list. Relievers Keegan Aiken and Andrew Kittredge are on the 15-day injured list. And relievers Felix Bautista and Colin Selby are on the 60-day injured list. Not good. A lot of key guys are on injured lists. The O's are beginning their 2026 regular season with a 6-game homestand. First up is a 3-game series against the Minnesota Twins at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Game 1 Thursday afternoon at 3:05. Trevor Rogers versus Joe Ryan is the pitching matchup. The O's in the 2026 regular season per Fangraphs are projected to go 84-78, but finish 4th in the 5-team American League East. Fangraphs projections don't have a single team in the AL East having a losing record for the 2026 regular season. I'm bullish on the O's, although I tell you, the injury problems during spring training absolutely are worrisome, but I will take the O's to go 88-74, make the playoffs as a wild card team, and make the American League Championship Series. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Friday show, episode 1290. We'll have much more on the Washington Commanders. Also on Friday show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles as opening day is Thursday. The Nats are at the Chicago Cubs Thursday afternoon at 2:20 for game 1 of a 3-game series. The O's are home to the Minnesota Twins Thursday afternoon at 3:05 for game 1 of a 3-game series. And on Friday's show, we'll discuss our Washington Capitals. The Caps are at the Utah Mammoth Thursday night at 9. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll talk to you on Friday.
Hi, this is Alex Kantrowitz. I'm the host of Big Technology Podcast, a longtime reporter and an on-air contributor to CNBC. And if you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. So each week on Big Technology, I bring on key actors from companies building AI tech and outsiders trying to influence it, asking where this is all going. They come from places like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, and plenty more. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, in meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.